Hi, my name is Michael Ozner. Everyone calls me Ozzie. I run a glass-blowing gallery and studio in South Lee, Massachusetts. I started doing this as a hobby when I was 14. My parents let me set up a studio in their basement, and I taught myself how to do all this. I dropped out of college when I was 21 to pursue this full-time, and 8 years ago, I was finally able to open my own gallery with my studio inside, which has been my dream for 20 years. The place is called Ozzie's Glass Gallery. People can come in and see all the work that I do, which is for sale, but also learn about how I do it all. I give a step-by-step explanation of what I'm doing while I do it, so it's educational as well as entertaining. So this is how my material comes in tubes and solid rods. They come in 5-foot sections, and then I break smaller, more manageable pieces off. I work with borosilicate glass, which is one of the hardest and strongest forms of glass on the planet. It's just like your old Pyrex cookware or beakers and test tubes in a science lab. This type of glass has a 3,000 degree melting point, so I need a 5,000 degree flame, which is fueled by liquid oxygen and propane to get the glass up to a workable temperature and do it fairly quickly. I'm just bouncing the glass into the flame to gently warm it up. Every time I pull a piece off, I'm going to create a new blow tube so I have a handle prepped and ready to go for what I'm doing next. This is a 3-stage torch, so it's 3 torches in one. I have a lot of control and versatility. I give a little puff just to widen the glass, and now I'm slowly going to stretch it out. So I'm not pulling it all, I'm just controlling it dropping. This type of material cools off so fast that it already lost all its workability, and now I'm going to separate it using heat and gravity. And then I pop a hole in it. I blow it out into the flame, fire polish it, and now I have a handle prepped and ready to go. So I'm going to make an ornament, and I'm going to turn this into an ornament. So all the glass on my entire workbench is going to get used up. I waste very little material doing this type of work, and that is because this material can be heated up indefinitely, which is unique to this type of glass. Whatever goes in that water bucket is scrap and garbage. Everything else will get put into a finished piece. So right now I'm heating the blank up. Glass has to be warm enough for other glass to stick to it. If the glass gets too cold or uneven in temperature at any point in time, it will crack, shatter, or explode. The ways I can get around that is my kiln or annealing oven. This type of glass can be put into the kiln to be reheated or preheated so I can continue working. Or if I need to step away from what I'm doing to help a customer, I can garage my work in the kiln and come back to it. That's how I'm able to run the gallery and make everything by myself. So I'm going to use these solid color rods. So this is red glass. And I'm going to stripe the color down the clear blank. This material comes in all different sizes. I have tubes that start out at 9 millimeters and go all the way up to 60. And I have solid rods that start at 2 millimeters and go all the way up to 31 millimeters. It comes even bigger, but anything bigger than that is physically too much for me to handle. So I work unusually large for the platform, but I'll always be limited on how big I can go just based off of how much material I can heat up at once, but I can put a lot of components together to achieve a bigger piece. So you can see how the red turns clear when it's heated up. This is a striking color. A lot of colors, they are just what they are. As I heat the glass up, it also wants to condense and shrink up on itself. So that's why I just puffed a little air into it. Glass has memory on a molecular level. That means anything I do to the glass, it's always going to remember and be there. So you really just have to be direct, precise, and intentional. So now I'm going to put some green. This is green Stardust. That was Red Elvis. The colors have fun names. So now I'm going to stripe 4 lines of green, and then I'm going to put white in the other negative space. Once I have all the color on, then I'm going to start melting it in and create the color design. So color design and the type of piece you're making really determine how long something's going to take. I can make a really basic ornament in 5 minutes, or some of the more complex ones I do take over an hour. So I try to create work that you're not going to see other places. I am self-taught. I never worked under anybody. I never went to school for this. I never took any classes. So I've kind of came up with my own unique style just from trial and error. I felt really fortunate that my parents let a 14-year-old kid pursue a crazy idea in their basement, and it changed my life. They told me as long as I was a full-time student and kept my grades up, they would support me learning how to do this. When I was 21, I made the executive decision to drop out of college to pursue this full-time. And ever since that moment, this has been my dream. I honestly never thought this would happen. To find a place that I could afford, that was on a busy enough road to support the business, and where I was allowed to set this up at, was a really hard combination to find. And when this place became available, Linda and Sarah from Creative Building Solutions gave me this opportunity, and I am forever grateful for it. So you can see I took the white out of the kiln. Every color reacts differently to the flame. Some colors are a lot more sensitive, so I was preheating the white. So when I went into the flame, it was more stable. Some colors want to crack and pop if you heat it up too quickly. So the kiln just gives me a safer way to work them. So these are some of my favorite ornaments to make. They're a little more on the time-consuming side, but they just give a really unique look. So I'm almost done putting the color on. And you can see this color rod's starting to get short. So if it starts to get too short, I will just weld it right to another rod, and that way I get to keep using it without burning my fingers or wasting any material. Is this working out so far? You can see how close I can get my hands to the flame. So glass is non-conductive. The heat will not travel down the material, but I definitely feel the radiant heat. That's why I'm wearing Kevlar gloves. I need my bare skin on my hands for the control and dexterity. A lot of what I do is through feel, but when you go to blow the glass out, the radiant heat that comes back is so intense that the back of your hands are a lot more sensitive. So my fingers can definitely tolerate it a lot better, and the gloves just give you a few extra seconds. So you can see right now I am just basically evening the heat base out. So this is looking sloppy right now, but basically what I did to this point was I just added color. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start melting that color in. All right, so I just attached a handle to the blank that I colored up, and now I'm going to start melting in the color and spiraling it up. If I mess up the color design in any way, there's no going back. So you really just have to be patient, take your time, and be precise. What I'm rolling it on right now is graphite. Graphite's one of the few materials that can handle these extreme temperatures. The graphite will not absorb the heat as quickly as steel would. Any heat it does absorb, it's going to let go of it much quicker, and the glass will never stick to it, most importantly. So as I start to twist it up, I'm going to blow a little air in it. So that stretches it out. As I keep heating it up, like I said before, it's going to condense down. So I need to try to keep it as even as possible. If it gets uneven now, it's going to be really uneven later. So I'm just puffing a little air into it. getting the spiral started is a little tricky, and then ending it is a little tricky. So right now I'm using my bigger flame, which allows me to melt more glass in at once, but it gives me less control. So because my handles, my blow tube, is made out of glass and is much thinner than the piece that I'm coloring, I have to be careful. If the handle collapses or buckles, it will create a vacuum and the piece will implode on itself. So I'm really just trying to melt the color in before I start really twisting it. And then I use friction while I roll it on the graphite to help twist it up a little bit. So now I'm going to switch to a smaller flame in a second, and that's going to help me finish spiraling the color on the bottom. And then I'll go back to the top. Also, the colors that you're seeing now are not going to be the colors when it is done. So colors look very dark and muted. It doesn't matter what color you're working. When it's this hot, everything looks orange. So the glass is around 3,000 degrees, and this flame is burning over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm trying not to twist it up too much because I want the lines of color to be pretty defined. The tighter I twist it, the thinner the color lines are going to be. So the very end, I have to make sure it's fully melted in and even. This is just where it gets a little trickier, but as long as I'm careful and I don't do anything dumb, it should be okay. So you can see a lot of these movements happen really quick. So you try to go as slow as you can, but also with purpose. So now I have it mostly twisted up. I can't just go back to the top in the flame. It's cooled down so much that if I just went back to where the handle attached, it would crack. Technically, I could melt that in, but it would leave a scar. So I'm going to slowly work my way back to the top to build some heat. And now I'm going to finish twisting up the top. So because this glass can be heated up indefinitely, when this is finished, if someone ever dropped it on a tile floor and the hook broke or the tip of it broke, they could 100% bring it or mail it back to me. I can actually heat it up and fix it. That's unique to this type of glass, as long as the ball is intact. So things like that don't happen often, but people seem to take comfort knowing that if they have something and something happens to it, as long as it's not destroyed, I'll always fix anything I made free of charge. And that is really because this glass allows me to do that. So if anybody goes out of their way to support the work that I'm doing, I will always stand behind my work and take care of it. I make such a wide selection of work. I don't really specialize in any one area. I was always interested in a little bit of everything. So over my 28 years of doing this, I've really tried to focus on just creating as much variety as well as I can. That really allows me to fill the whole gallery up by myself and do something different every day. That way I never get bored of it. And I have a pretty diverse selection of work down here. So now what I'm doing is I'm evening this out. So I'm going to heat it up, melt it down, roll it, puff it out, and I'm going to continue that until the wall thickness looks even all the way down. I'm also going to condense this down. I can only heat up so much material at once, so the way I do bigger pieces using the torch is I will start with a larger section, I will color it up, melt it down, and I'll condense it down to just a couple inches, and that allows me to heat up a lot more material evenly. So this is just a small example of what I just explained, but some of the pieces for my wavy bowls or bigger vases, I'll take a section of 50 millimeter tubing that is 12 or 16 inches long, color it up, shrink it way down to like 4 inches, and then I can blow out a lot more glass. So what I'm doing right now is super important. If I don't have this evened out, then when I go to blow it out, it's going to blow out really uneven, especially that every color has its own unique density, and this color design would just want to be uneven. So setting everything up to give me the best chance at having clean results. So pretty much everything I've done so far is going to come down to me blowing this out in the next minute or two. So these right here, these are marble molds. Glass wants to become round naturally, but you'll never get it perfectly round. So if I was making a marble, and people who collect marbles, they need to be 100% round. So I can use a marble mold to help round it out by changing the axis of my handle 6 to 8 times, but I'll also use that to help pull the heat out of the ornament when I'm blowing it out, because I don't want the end to blow out too thin. So I'll blow it out in stages, and I'm going to do that in just a second. So this is called marvering. It's an Italian name for basically rolling the glass. So I'll roll the glass on the graphite. That helps me shape it and keep it straight. So you can see, so this is where I'm at right now. And now I'm going to heat it up, give it one final shape, and then I'm going to start blowing it out. There's enough glass right here where I could blow this out to be the size of a bowling ball, but it would be as thin as saran wrap. So the challenge with ornaments is making them as big as possible, but also keeping them as light as possible. So we will find out together if I did everything right. So I got it heated, now I'm going to blow it out. So I'm just putting continuous pressure in there. I don't do it too far at once. I want to check it, see how it's blowing out. My main concern is the top of it. I need it to be thick enough up there so I can put a hook on there after. So this is blowing out really nicely. I'm just going to roll the end of this in there real quick, pull some heat out of it. And then I'm using gravity right now to slowly change the shape of it as I'm doing this. This one's coming out really good. So I'm pretty happy with how this one looks so far. So you can see the color, like pretty much you just see white, but tomorrow this is going to scream Christmas. It's going to be green and red. As it starts cooling down, even right now, you'll start to see the red start showing back up. And I want to say it's magic, but it's really science. So that's what's striking colors. So you see how the red is showing up more and more as it cools down. So a lot of what I do, I can tell how hot something is by the way the glass looks color-wise. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a solid rod and I'm going to attach it to the top of the ornament. There's a few ways to make a hook. I can pre-make a hook, stick it on there, or I can do it this way. So I'm going to find the center. I attach the rod. I'm going to heat up about 1 inch of this solid rod, and then I'm going to loop it back around on itself. So that is the start of the hook. So right now, yes, it's a hook, but when this cooled down, I could give it a good whack and that hook would break off. So I am going to bring it a step farther. I'm going to use this little hand torch, and I'm going to seamlessly seal this hook onto the ornament. So the hook will never be able to break off. It's one continuous piece. With that being said, if it hits something hard enough, it is still glass. And if the hook ever did break, that is something I 100% can fix. Maybe once or twice a year, someone's Christmas tree falls over and accidents happen. So if I'm able to fix it, I always will. But this glass, it truly is one of the strongest forms of glass that exists. So drinking glasses are all dishwasher safe. You can pour boiling water right into any of the cups and the glass will not be affected. All right, so my next step, this is something that took me a while to figure out. And I need to pop a little tiny pinhole in the top of the ornament. I can still finish the ornament if I didn't, but this is going to make things so much easier for me. Air, when it's heated up, expands. So when I go to shape the bottom of this and close it up, it's going to want to blow out and pop. By popping this little tiny pinhole in there, so I'm looking in the mirror as I'm blowing it out to make sure I don't blow it out too far. And I'm going to literally pop out a hole the size of a sewing needle. This is like 90% done right now. So now I'm heating up around that hole and it closes up. So you can see the tiny little pinhole. That's going to make the difference of where if something ever happened to this, that I could fix it in the future. If that pinhole wasn't in there, I would not be able to heat it back up and repair it because it would want to pop open. Also, the way I want to shape the bottom of this, I would not be able to achieve that without that little pinhole. So it's so small, nothing will ever get inside there, but it really makes the difference of me being able to make these unique ornaments. So I'm attaching a temporary handle to the hook. I'm bouncing the bottom in the flame, and now I'm going to start tapering the bottom down. So I have a good idea in my head of how I want this to look, but I'm also going to kind of go with what the glass wants to do. So I'm going to taper this down and pull it to a tapered point, but depending on how the glass reacts and moves, that will kind of persuade me of how I want to finish the tapered part of this. As I heat this up, you can see that the glass is starting to taper down. So I'm going to pull it out. I'm letting gravity help me move the glass. So heat and gravity are the tools that I use the most. I use very few tools to do a lot of what I do. I'm going to blow a little air in here still. Even though I'm shrinking it down, by blowing a little air in there, it stretches it out, and it makes it a little easier for me to continue condensing it down. So a lot of times it kind of looks like I'm going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but each time I'm making a little more progress. I'm going a little farther out in the flame where it's a little cooler. So now it just closed up. At this point, I cannot blow any more air in there. So this is where if that pinhole was in there or wasn't in there, the bottom of this would literally blow up just like a balloon. And it would either pop or then it would suck in and implode on itself. So there's a few dozen ways I could finish the bottom of this. So right now, I'm pulling my blow tube off. Any of my waste goes in the water bucket. I do that so as it cools down, I don't have to worry about it exploding and hot glass going all over the place. The water shocks the glass and just keeps it safe and contained. So there's the finished ornament. Sometimes I'll put a teardrop on the bottom. Sometimes I'll taper them down. I do them in a bunch of different shapes. You can kind of see the colors now. The red is going to darken up a bit. The green is going to come to life. The green is definitely more muted when it's hot like this. And this is just one out of hundreds of different styles that I do. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope it was a cool experience for you. I try to give people not only entertaining experience, but an educational one on and what goes into bringing all of this to life. Also, one of the more important things is my dogs, Tulip and Poppy. These guys are sisters. They come down here with me 6 days a week. They just turned 2.5, but they've been coming since they were 9 weeks old. Girls, say hi. Say hi. Yes. So this is Poppy, Tulip, They are my best friends, and they are here every day except Sunday. So if you guys ever want to come down and check me out, I am located at 1670 Pleasant Street. That is Route 102 in South Lee, Massachusetts. I am currently open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6, Sunday, 10 to 5. I am closed Monday, but I'm usually here 7 days a week. So if you're in the area and you see my truck in the parking lot, stop in. I have an open door policy. You can check out a lot more of what I do on my business Facebook page, Ozzie's Glass Gallery. I am currently working on a website, but my Facebook page will show you a very diverse selection of my work. My phone number is on there, but you can reach out to me at ozziesglass@gmail.com. And my phone number is 413-822-4830. Really appreciate you checking me out, and I hope it was a cool experience.